Welcome back. Today I'm going to try to do Puzzle Rush Survival on chess.com as part of my daily chess development. The last time I attempted this, it didn't go well at all, and I got one of my worst scores of all time. So I kind of feel the need to do it again to make up for that. If you're new here, I'm not a titled player or a chess coach like many other chess YouTubers. I'm just a random person trying to get better at chess. And one of the ways that I do that is by Puzzle Rush and Puzzle Rush Survival. Not counting my last one, but these usually take a long time. So I'll try to edit out any gaps, where I just think and stare at the board, but let's just get started. Play. I think I had this exact same puzzle in my last Puzzle Rush Survival, didn't I? That's just checkmate, isn't it? Because I'm playing with the black pieces. Their king can't come out either way, so yeah, that should just be checkmate. Okay, and fortunately the first few are usually pretty easy, but not always. I am playing with the white pieces. I do have checks. This is a check, but I think they would just take my king. I also have a check with the knight, but I think they would take the knight. And I have a check with the bishop. That might be it, because that looks like a safe check, and my rook is cutting off all these squares, and the knight's cutting off those two squares, so I think this is checkmate. Okay. Well, this is checkmate right here, because my rook is defending. And this is checkmate. I'm playing with the black pieces. Okay. Pretty sure. White pieces, okay, I think that's checkmate, isn't it? In this one, it looks like I have a two-move checkmate because this is a protected check, which would force the king back, and then I think one more move down there in the corner is checkmate. Queen to h8. And here, this might be a three-mover, but it looks my opponent's going to have checkmate on the next turn if I don't keep checking. But this is a check, which I think their only way out is to block with the knight. Then I would check with the bishop, and their knight is pinned, so the king would have to move away, and then that's checkmate. So it looks like a three-move checkmate, because they can't block with their queen or anything like that. So this is check, and then mate. All right. Well, because my bishop is guarding that square, this should just be checkmate, since I'm not currently in check. Right? We're going to look at checks first. This is a check. It's not mate because the king moves over, but once it moves over, this should be check. No, that's not checkmate because their queen's guarding that square. Okay, so a little harder than that. The king moves over, then I check again with the rook, and the king has to come back. And then I have mate two different ways, don't I? Then I would have checkmate with the rook or with the queen. Is there anything faster than that? Let's see, yeah, because their only legal move after capturing here would be to move over. And yeah, I definitely wouldn't want to check over there with the rook because of the queen, so I would want to check again. King comes back, but then I have two different ways to mate, I'm pretty sure. Well, let's try the first one. Oh, it just stopped there. It didn't go through the rest of it. Okay. Maybe I would have had multiple moves on the succeeding turns. This isn't checkmate, but it forces the king to move over one, and then I'll take the bishop, which will be checkmate. I'm pretty sure. This looks like a mate in 2, because I'll take the pawn. The king will have to move over. No, sorry, mate in 3, because then the king will come back, and then I'll checkmate with the other rook. Oh, it stopped. All right. Well, I'm pretty sure the next move was forced, and then I would have had a mate in 1, so I'm not sure why it stopped. Let's see. Their king has just come forward because it was in check. My pawn is guarding those two squares, so what if I checked here with my queen, which will also cut off this square? I think that's checkmate. All right. Well, let's look at checks first. One is this bishop check here. I think they would take, and if they did, I could take again, and then that's check. The king has to move, and I would get the rook. Do I have any other checks? I mean, I could take that with my queen, but that's a bad idea. No, winning the rook is not enough. I think there has to be a mate, because if I check here, that's an even trade, and then I take the pawn, so I'm up a pawn. They move the king. I take the rook. Then they check me with this knight and win my rook. Actually, no, if they checked me with the knight at that point, I could take the knight, but then they would still get my rook. Ah, so maybe there's a mate. Let's see. Check. I assume they're going to take with the pawn. I'm not sure if that's what they'll do, but let's say that they do, and I check. The king, I'm going to guess, comes up, and then I would check with the bishop, and then it would have, and then that would be mate. Okay, well, what if I checked and they took, and I checked and they went over? Then I don't have a mate, but I could check again, and they would have to go over to one of those squares. If they went to the light square, I could check with the bishop. If they went to the dark square, not sure. Okay, well, this one's stumping me, but I'm going to take the knight. Okay, well, now if that is the move, then checking here makes a lot of sense. Oh, they blocked with the bishop. I didn't even consider that possibility. Well, then I'm going to get the rook with check. Oh, and it stopped there. Oh my goodness. The thing about that was so hard is I didn't know what was going to happen after that. Here, I think we have to stop one square shy of the back rank because of their rook and force the king over, then check. And then when their rook takes, we'll take with our rook, and that should be checkmate, like so. Well, since I'm not in check, I'm free to move my queen. That's going to be a check. They have to block with their rook, and then I will take it, and that will be checkmate, like so. Here, I think we might end up in a very similar pattern we had earlier, because after I check, they're going to have to block with the rook, but then I'll check with my bishop, the king will have to move away, and then I'll take the rook. Except I think in the other puzzle, that was a knight there, that we had a similar thing with the bishop, like so, and then take the rook for mate. Okay, I am playing with the white pieces. My rooks are defending each other, so that's good. My bishop's defending the pawn. Do I have any checks? I have multiple checks. If I check with the front rook on e5, the king can go up. What if I check with the rear rook on e5? I think that's just checkmate, isn't it? Because the rooks are protecting each other, and the front rook would be cutting these off, the rear rook would be cutting off all these, and the pawn is guarding that square. I think that's checkmate in one. Let's look at the checks. I can take the rook with check, but they'll just take back, and I think that would be the end of the checks, except for here, but they would take that with their bishop. But I can also check with the knight now, which forces the king over one. Then I can push my d-pawn, which is a check with the bishop, and I think that's checkmate. Okay, let's try this. Oh, it stopped there too, even though they had a forced move. Oh my. Okay, they've just moved the bishop back out of danger from this pawn. Where's my queen? Right here? I don't think I want to take the rook because the knight takes. Oh, but my rook is guarding this square, so I think I check here with my queen on d2, and the king has to move away. And then and then I check in there when the rook takes. I'll take with my rook, I think, like so. Checkmate. All right, I'm already doing better, or as good as I did on my last run when I ended, and I haven't missed any yet, so fingers crossed, we'll do better than my last one. Okay, I have multiple checks. I can check with the rook, which, oh wait, they can't take with the knight. If I checked with the rook, they'd have to take with the king, and then I could take the knight, but then I've lost a rook, so that's bad. What if I checked with the bishop first? The king would only have one legal move, which is going over, and then that would be checkmate with the rook, so I think they would have to take with the queen, and then I would check with the rook, and when they took the rook, I would get the queen for the rook, I think. Okay, they did that, so that makes this make a lot of sense. Whether the king takes the rook or moves over, I should get the queen. Like so. Oh, but they could have checked me down there. I don't know if that would have been their best move or not. I have a free bishop, but that's very rarely the point of these puzzles. I also have a check here, but their knight is guarding that square. I have a check over here with my knight. I have a check over here with my knight, but they would just take that one. Oh, their queen is here. Should I take their queen? I just realized our queens are facing each other, and mine's not defended, but I can defend it by checking. But if I check here, aren't they just going to move closer toward it? Wait, sorry, I just realized my rook is cutting off this entire file. If I check here, that's checkmate. Oh my. Oh, it took way too long to see that. Oh, and here I have a checkmate, queen to f8, even if the knight wasn't here, because the king couldn't get out because my queen would be guarding that square. Okay, I think I'm doing pretty well. Their queen is guarding the bishop, so I shouldn't just take it. But what if I check back here with the rook? What if I check on d1? They can't come up because of my queen. They could block with their rook. I guess they would have to, well, they could block with their bishop too, but then I would take that. So I assume they'll block with the rook. And then what? Do I take the rook? Then they take. Okay, well, I'm not sure. Oh, I can check down there with my queen. Oh, but they can still block with the rook, so that's a bad idea. Okay, so maybe I should drop this bishop back to f4, threatening mate over here. Can they stop that? If I drop this bishop back, do they just, if they take it, then I take? Oh, no, I can't, because they're threatening checkmate here. If my queen gets off this file. My queen has to stay on the g file to keep them from checkmating me. My goodness. Okay, and this puzzle should just be rated 1200 and something. What's the answer here? Okay, clearly I'm missing something. Let me use my checklist once again, and we'll start with the checks. I think we determined that I have 3 different checks. No, 4 if I count taking the bishop. But the queen has 3 different checks here, and the rook has a check on d1. Let's get rid of the queen ones first and see if I'm missing something. If I check on h2 and they take it, I think my only follow-up checks would be with the bishop or the rook, but either way they would just get lost. So yeah, if I checked here and they took, and I checked with the bishop, they could be taken with the rook or with the king if it was down there. If I checked with the rook on g2, their queen would take, or their king. Okay, so I'm pretty sure that one's out. Okay, so checking with the queen down here on e1, they block with the rook. Then my only follow-up check would be to take the rook, and they would take my queen. And then my only follow-up check would be over here with the rook, but they would take that too. And then I would have a follow-up check with my bishop, but they would take that too. And I would have no pieces left. What was the other one with the queen? Oh, taking the bishop. I think they would take with the queen, and I could take their queen, but then they would take my rook, and they would have a rook and a bishop for my bishop. I think that's all 3 queen checks. Okay, the rook check was on d1. I said they would block with the rook, and if I took it, they would just take with their bishop. And then would I have any checks after that? I would still have the queen check, but they could just take. I would have this queen check, but the bishop could take. I would not have a queen check down there anymore because the bishop would be in the way. But I would have this check down here, which is mate. Wait, so it was the first check I looked at. I think they have, no, they could block with the bishop. What if they blocked with the bishop? Oh, but then I would have mate immediately because it's the bishop that's preventing me from getting down there. Okay, so check with the rook, block with the rook, take the rook with check. Think they have to take back, and then I have mate on g1. Oh my, that took a long time for me to see, but I think that's it. Wow, and that was only 1271. That was a tricky, very tricky one for me. Okay, in this one, they are... Wait, why didn't they take my queen on the last turn? What? It says black's last move was moving this bishop back, but they could have taken my queen. But I don't have checkmate because the knight's guarding that square. Even though my bishop is pointed there, their knight would take. So it's probably not that. I also don't think it's a good idea to go all the way down. Wait, their knight won't be guarding the square if I take the knight first. I take the knight, which is a check. I have 2 checks with the knight, but I think taking their knight with check is the best move here because they can't move out of check, so they have to either take with the pawn or the queen, and then I have checkmate with my queen on h2. Let's try that. This should be checkmate. Okay, my goodness, some of those are hard. Oh, and I don't like the ones where I'm in check because I have multiple... Oh, in this one I just take the queen. Pretty sure. I was going to say I have multiple ways to get out of check. Like I could just move the king, I could drop the rook back, but I think I should just take their queen. Is there any downside to that? Do I get checkmated or anything? No, I think I just take the queen. Those are so rare in puzzles for me that I almost always miss them. There's just a free piece, but because if I block with the rook, they take my queen. And if I get out of check with my king, they take my queen. So I'm pretty sure I take it. Okay, that one should have been rated a lot lower, I think. All right, where are we? Do I have checks? No, I don't have checks. Do I have captures? No, I don't have any captures. So it's not a check or a capture because none of those are possible here. So it's something else. There are threats. I could threaten their queen with my bishop. I could threaten their queen with my bishop over here. I could threaten the queen with the pawn. I think those are my only 3 threats on the queen. Can I threaten anything else? No. Okay, well, what if I put my bishop on b7? It's not only pointed at the queen, it's pointed down here at g2, which looks like it might win a rook. What would my opponent play if I played bishop to b7? I don't know, but it looks like it wins a rook. I'm going to try that. Oh, they ran way over there. Wait, are they setting up a mate? No, because their bishop is not aimed there. I think I take on g2. I don't see anything else just offhand. Wait, they're lined up again. Are they about to bring this bishop this way? That's what, I'm going to take the rook. Okay. I almost wish it would have continued because right there I have opponents that have the queen lined up with my castled king. And then that dark squared bishop comes down there where my pawn is pinned, so I can't take the bishop. And they're threatening mate. And if I push that pawn, they get my rook for the bishop. That happens to me frequently, and I don't know what to do about it. That's one reason I've been hesitant to castle. Anyway, back to this. I do have checks. I have 2 different checks with my queen. I mean, really, I have more than that. I have at least 3 checks with my queen, but that one looks really bad, the one on g2. Okay, what does the opponent play if I check on f5? I assume they would go back out there. And would the same thing be true if I checked on e6? I think the same is true for both of those. They can just go back to the 2nd rank. And both of those continue defending my rook, which is facing off with their rook right now. I could take their rook first, and then I assume they would take back. And then I could check and they would go to the second rank and I could pick up one of their 2 passed pawns. But that doesn't seem right. Oh, wow. I have this check too. Is that mate? No, it's not, because they would bring the king this way. Okay, but they would not be able to escape that way. Okay, so what about rook to h5 check? They only have one legal move, which would be to come up to g4. My rook's protected, and then I would checkmate them with a pawn. I think. Let's try that. Oh, and it stopped, even though I know they have a legal move. Oh my. But yeah, that one was tricky. I almost didn't see that rook check. Okay, they've attacked my queen here, protected by the pawn, but the pawn is pinned. I'm pretty sure that they can't take back, so I should just take the bishop with my rook, because the pawn can't take back. But then we're even. Right now they're up a piece. But once I take this, what do they play? And then what am I threatening? I think I would be threatening to take the pawn too, but they can always come and defend it after I get the bishop, right? If I get the bishop, they bring their queen up to defend that pawn. That might not be the best way, but let's say that's what they do. Then what do I play? That would also unpin the pawn, so I would have to move the rook. Would I just bring it back, or would I move it over? I'm pretty sure I shouldn't take the bishop with the queen, because then the pawn isn't pinned anymore. Also, I should look for checks. I do not have a check there because my own pawn is in the way, and I don't have any other checks other than taking the pawn, which is probably bad. Okay, and the only captures that I have are the pawn and the bishop, and I really don't see any threats for that matter, so I'm going to take the bishop. Hopefully that's right. Oh, they defended the pawn this way, but now I can get their queen for free. Sorry, why didn't they defend it here? They should have defended on f6, correct? Because now I can check, and when they take the rook, I'll get their queen for free. I'm pretty sure. Okay. That was it, then I get the queen. Well, I mean, that worked out well, but I don't understand why the opponent played what they did. That seems to happen a lot more often on chess.com than on Lichess. Oh, you know what? I'm getting close to 30 minutes on my end on this video, so I've got to stop so my editor won't crash later when I'm editing, and then I'll start a new video for the rest of this. All right, I'm on my second video file. This is the next puzzle. It looks like they have forked my rooks. Well, then I probably have a way to get out of that. I'm going to guess with checks. I can check with either rook right now. This rook has 2 different checks, and my e-rook has a check down here on e6. I think if I checked with the forward rook right now, they could just come toward me either way. But if I checked with the e-rook, they can't come over here because of the f-rook. They would have to come to one of these 2 squares, either one of which I could check them with the f-rook, because it would be protected by pawns. But let's follow that out. This gets the e-rook out of danger of the knight. King has to come forward. I wouldn't want to continue checking with the e-rook because of the knight, so I would want to leave it where it was on e6. If the king went to g5, I could check with the h-pawn, which would force it to go over to h5, and then I think I would have a mate with the f-rook on f5. So what if it went to h5 first? Then I couldn't check it with the h-pawn, and if I checked it with the g-pawn, it could just come back over, and that would be bad. So if I checked with the e-rook, the king went to h5, then would f5, rook to f5 be mate, because the pawns are guarding these 2 squares? Okay, maybe I'm going to try rook to e6 check. Okay, and it did go over there, so is this checkmate? Because the rooks are cutting off all of those squares and the pawns are cutting off these 2? Oh, I forgot they could block with the pawn. There are a lot of things to keep in mind and a lot of moves to consider, and I miss a lot of them, which is why I'm not a grandmaster or even a lesser master of some kind. I can check with the pawn, or I could check with the rook, but I think they would take. So let's say I check by playing g4, which is protected by the pawn. I think they would have to come down, and then do I have mate over here? I think. Let's try that. I think rook to h6 is checkmate, because it would cut off the whole file and my pawn's cutting off the getaway square. Fingers crossed. Wow. Well, we're in the 1500s now on these puzzles, and they're getting difficult. Well, this one's not difficult, because here I have checkmate, because my rook is open pointed at h7. This is mate in 1, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so just as I said one was difficult, it gave me a really easy one, just for fun. Okay, my queen is under attack, and it also looks like this pawn is getting dangerously close to my king. So let's look for checks. I have checks with the queen here and here, but I think both of those are bad. The king could just take either one. I don't think they would take that one with the pawn, because then they would lose their queen for the rook, but they would still be ahead from that. I can check with the rook on h6. The king could go back or forward. It could come forward to e5 or back to g7. Is there a more forcing check? Well, I mean, this check's pretty forcing, but they would just take and... Okay, let's go back to rook to h6 check. What if they come back to g7 with the king, which is attacking my rook? But then I could check down there on h7, and the king would have to go back, and then I think I would have checkmate with my queen. So that looks good. But what if the king came forward to e5? Then my rook would be cutting off that entire that entire rank. I could then check with my queen protected by the pawn, and then that would force the king. No, the king couldn't go back because of the rook. Okay, so it's mate in a few moves either way, I think. Oh, it did go back. Well, that makes it easier then. At least, I mean, seems easier to me. That's the first one that I saw. I almost went too close, but I have to go to the corner. Okay. Wow. I can remember when getting across 30 was a huge accomplishment for me. Wait, is it this to get their rook? I just now saw that. How about that, 31? But now because my high is 41, I'm feeling pretty good. I've gotten better, I think is the point here. I'm playing with the black pieces, okay? So my queen's down there. I was about to see where I could move this white queen, but I'm playing with the black pieces according to that title there. Well, I have multiple checks. I think, is that one the best? I think g3 is the best because it directly threatens their queen. I think it would force a queen trade, but I guess I have to look at all of them. If I check on d1, they have multiple ways to get out of check. But yeah, if I checked on d1, they have 4 different ways to get out of check. If I check on e1, they have multiple ways to get out of check. 6 different ways to get out of check. So that's going to be really hard to calculate. If I check on g6, they have multiple ways to get out of check, 6 of them I think. But if I check on g3, they only have one sensible way to get out of check, and that's taking with the queen. Because if they just move the king, I'll take their queen, and I assume they would come toward the h-file to keep this pawn, but I would just move my king out, and then I would march this h-pawn forward. Did I say that right? I meant if they traded queens, they would bring the king. If they got out of check, I would take their queen, and then it would be really easy to checkmate them. But let's say they took my queen with their queen, which would be a check on me, and then I would take their queen and be out of the way of my pawn, and they could bring their king, but I would just move up one and be guarding the whole file for the pawn to come down. That one makes the most sense to me, but I might be missing something obvious. Oh, I did miss this check over here, but I think that's the worst one. I think checking on b1 would be worse because their queen could just take, or checking on e3 would be really bad too, or d4. Wow, there were a bunch of checks that I didn't even think about, but yeah, all of those would be really bad. I'm going to try the one on g3 and see if they trade queens with me. They did. Well, I only have one legal move here, so I don't have to figure that one out. Now here's the thing. If I move my pawn now, their king gets over here. And then if I move the pawn again, their king gets over here, and I'm not going to be able to promote. They're going to force a draw. So I think I have to move my king forward, which would block their king from any of those squares. And then they're going to have to come this way to try to get my pawn. But by the time they get to e3, I move my pawn. By the time they get to f4, I move my pawn. And then by the time they get here, my pawn's protected. So I think moving the king is the answer. Oh, and that was the end of the puzzle. All right. Okay, they are definitely getting harder. But the cool thing about these endgame puzzles is that we only have a few pieces. I'm still going to look for checks first, and then after that, I'll just use process of elimination. Well, here I have a check with the rook to b5. I don't think they would move out of check because then I would get their rook. I think if I checked on b5, they would block with their rook. And then the question would be, should I take it? I think if they blocked with their rook, I could probably check with g4, but they could still go up here and protect their rook. Then I would take it, and they would come down, and then what would I do? Just move my king back and forth? They have an extra pawn, and that's what's throwing me here. I could check now with the pawn, but they could just take it. Wait, maybe that's it. If I check with the pawn to g4 now, they either have to give up defense of the rook or move over here where I could check them or take the pawn. Okay, so if they take the pawn, which is what I first thought that they would do, then I can check them here and they have to give up defense of the rook. I think that's it. But again, they don't have to take with the rook. They could just move over one. If they move over one, I think I could check them and they would have to get out of check this way, and then I would take this pawn? I don't know. I think they're going to take the pawn, but I really don't know. Let's try. Oh, they did go that way. Okay, it's a good thing that I considered that's a possibility. Now, obviously, what I would like to happen is when I check them that they would move back and I would get the rook. But I think what's going to happen is when I check them on b5, they're going to try to keep protecting the rook, and that'll be the only square, d4, where they can do that. But then I get to take this pawn over here, which frees up my g-pawn a little bit, but then they can check me, and I guess I could get out of check this way, but then they can check me again, then I can get out of check this way, and then they can check me again, and then I can go toward their other pawn. Oh my, this is complicated, but I'm going to try rook to b5. Well, they did what I thought. Okay, well then it has to be taking this pawn, because I can't take their rook, or can I? Yes, I didn't even think about this. I can check them here and then take their rook, because I could have gotten their rook on the last turn if they hadn't have stayed close to protecting it, but now I can force it because my king's guarding that square. I'm pretty sure. Let's try it. Take the rook. Oh my, that one was complicated. I'm glad we did it, but each turn I had to recalculate because I don't have that ability to see like 8, 9 turns in advance, or even 3 sometimes. And now we're in the 1700s. This puzzle is probably 18 something, so definitely difficult. But we are in an endgame position. I don't have any checks. I don't have any captures. So all I have is threats at this point. And I have a process of elimination because the e-pawn can't move. And I'm pretty sure I don't want to move the bishop. You know what? Moving the bishop actually wouldn't be that bad because if they tried to move the a pawn, I would just take it because they can't protect that light square with their dark squared bishop. But they are guarding the promotion square, so I have to keep that in mind. So the only other pieces I have are the pawn and the king. If I move my f pawn, I assume they'll take it. And then if I try to bring my king to help guard the e pawn, they'll just come back. And then I could bring my king. And then I don't know what they would do. Probably get the bishop out of the way of their c-pawn, maybe. Okay, so maybe it's a king move. Well, I can't move my king to the dark square diagonal where their bishop is guarding it, but I can move my king. Wait, can I move my king down here to h2, try to come around this way? h7 to g8? Because I play with different colors on every other puzzle, it seems like I lose track of which is the first rank and which is the 8th rank. Okay, but the first rank's back here. Okay, so I could play h7, but then wouldn't they just move forward? But then I could play e7, which is a check, and the f pawn is protected, so they'd have to go back and take that pawn, and then I could get over here to protect the promotion of the other one? I don't know what else I have. I'm going to play king to h7. It might be wrong, and if so, we'll find out why at the end. It'll mark which ones are wrong, and then I will check at the end. King to h7. That was right. Oh, that's a big relief because I had no idea what to play. That was the only thing I thought that makes any difference here. Now, because I can't go there directly now because of their king guarding that square, and I can't come here because of the dark squared bishop, and I don't think it does any good to go to g6 because I still can't move that pawn. And also g6 doesn't get me any closer to g8, which is where I want my king to be to protect the promotion square. So what I want to do is check with the e pawn on e7 because I think that forces them to take. Then I put my king on g8, guarding my promotion square, and their bishop isn't guarding the promotion square, and if it tried to, their king's in the way. I think that's the answer. Okay, then it has to be king to g8. Oh, wow. Okay, I feel really good about that one. The last 2 or 3, actually, I feel pretty good about. Just kind of reasoning my way through, which is probably normal for most people, but for me, that was a big step up. Okay. Do I have any checks? I do have a check, but that seems really bad. I do not have a check with this bishop. Don't have a check with that bishop, although I could, hit that rook, maybe. But the rook's about to come right here, isn't it? That's pretty bad. To bend my queen to my king, protected by their queen. Okay, what do I have? No captures other than that pawn, which again is bad. Oh, no. I can capture the pawn with the knight. Would that be okay? Because then I'm protecting the square where they want to pin my queen to the king, and I'm threatening this fork with the knight. Oh, is that good? That's not really a capture as much as it is a threat. Now I assume, maybe not, but I assume they would take with the bishop, and if so, I take with my queen, and that's mate. They'd have to block with the rook, but because my dark squared bishop's cutting off those squares. You know what, though? I know this might sound crazy, but what if that's too slow? What if they have something that I hadn't foreseen, like this check or something? Because I take with the knight, that's not check. But if I take with the queen, it is check, and their king can't move. And they take with the bishop, and I take with my bishop, and that's mate, except they have to block with the rook, and I take it. I think this one's a queen sacrifice. I don't know what the answer is if I take with the knight first. They have something, I assume. I don't know what it is, but they might have something. But if I take with the queen, I think it's guaranteed. Oh my, I'm so nervous when I do the queen sacrifices, but here we go. It was that. And they have to block with the rook, and that's mate. Oh my goodness. I'm definitely getting better. I mean, I think my opponents have been getting better too, which is why my, rapid and bullet and stuff like that, those ratings aren't really climbing, but I can go back a couple of years and I don't think I would have found that. Let's look at checks. Do we have checks? No, we don't have checks. Do we have captures? I have 2 different captures with the knight. They're both pawns. They both look like something bad would happen to my knight there. I can also capture this pawn, which doesn't look great. Yeah, I don't know which one's better. Okay, I'm going to take the E pawn. Probably not correct, but it was not. Okay. Well, we'll find, yeah, that was rated 1940. We'll find out at the end why that was not correct. Well, I have a couple of checks here. I have a check with my queen, which I think is bad. They can take back 2 different ways. I have a check with the pawn, which they can just step out of 2, 3 different ways. But I also have a check with this knight. My F knight can take on E3, which is a fork, and their bishop is pinned. Is that it? I almost didn't see that check because that knight's so far away, but that might be it. Where does the king go when I check here? Does it come forward? Because that would be attacking this knight that would not be defended anymore. Okay, so if I check on E3 with the knight and the king comes forward and then I take their queen, I assume they would take back and then I could check with this knight and win their bishop. Oh wow, that seems complicated, but I'm going to try it. Oh, they moved back. I thought they were going to move forward. That changes everything. Well, then I'll take the queen, won't I? Do I have any other checks, right? Do I have any checks? I actually do have a check with the bishop, but they would just take that one of 2 different ways. I think I take the queen with the knight. Oh, they checked me here. Well, I don't think I want to block that with the rook, so I should just move out of check, right? Oh, I don't know. Am I supposed to block with the rook? Because I can't take it. I can't, there's no pawn here to... Oh, wow. You know what? I just realized they're about to take this. Oh my goodness. I didn't even see that at the beginning. Okay, I definitely should not block with the rook because then they promote with check. And then I can't move the rook. And I'd have to come up. And then they would take the rook and that would be checkmate. Okay, so I definitely should not block with the rook. I should move my king up. That way if they take it, I'll take. I think. They did take it. Well, I'm in check. And I think it would be silly to move out when I could just take the queen. I'm going to take it. And they never took back my knight back there. Oh my. That one was... Okay. Well, I mean, I'm glad I got it right, but ooh, these are getting tough. Okay. Checks. I do have a check here. I think they would just take with their knight, and I don't think I gained anything. Oh my... Wait, I just realized I don't have a queen. They do. I gave up my queen for a minor piece or 2, or maybe development, because my opponent's not really developed right now. Is that my only check? No, I have a check down here on H6. Sorry, A6. I saw the 6 there, but this is the A file. I have a check on A6. They do not have to block with their queen. They could just move over, and then I don't think I would have a follow-up. What about captures? Looks like the only captures I have are this knight or this pawn. But capturing that pawn looks like they would take here with check, and then I would take back, and then they would get my knight too. Wait, if I checked first with the bishop on A6 and the king moved over, then this knight move would be a check. And I don't know if they would take it, but if they did, then I would get their rook with check. But then they could just come back out. Oh my. Well, I'm getting close to 30 minutes again on my end in the second video, and also my brain's getting tired. I can feel my brain slowing down, so I might miss the next few. These are getting difficult. I'm going to check on A6. Oh, that was... Oh, and they blocked with the queen. What? Why did they do that? Well, I'm going to take it. And there's more? If I thought they were going to block with the queen, I would have played that almost immediately. Okay, now I don't have any checks, because now this isn't a check, this isn't a check. I mean, if I played there, that makes I think it almost forces them to take my rook. I guess they could just move the rook over, but it's not a check. That's not a check. I can't check with the bishop, even if the knight wasn't in the way. I could take the knight now, but they take back and helps them develop, so that's not good. Okay, so should I play knight to E6, which is a fork? I think that encourages them to take, and then I take, and am I ahead at that point? No, I'm not. Right now we're still even on material. I was behind, but I got their queen because they blocked with it for some reason. But now we're even, I think. Yeah, it looks like we're even including pawns. I'm just not sure. I can't think of anything because I don't think it helps to take this pawn to give up the knight for that. Although if they did, then I could check and they would have to go over giving me the rook for free. But that's why if I took here, I think they would take my rook. And then when I took their rook, then they would take my knight. So I don't think that's good. That's why I was leaning toward over here. But maybe there's something else I'm missing. I just don't know what it is. Oh, but then that bishop is going to have trouble getting out because I'm blocking that pawn. But no, then they would just play their F pawn and get their bishop out this way. No, they can't because my knight's in there. Okay, so maybe that's it. It's about stunting the development of their bishop? Oh my, is that what puzzles are about now? It stopped. Oh, what? Okay, oh my. Oh, the tension is rising here in my brain. Let's see, that's protected. My queen is not currently under attack, but what can I do with it? Can I check? I can check with the knight, but I think they'll take two different ways. I cannot check with the bishop. My rook, it looks like I castled long and then had no chance to do anything with this rook. Do any of these pieces become free if I check here and they take it? No. No, if I check there and they take with the queen, then the bishop's free with check, but I don't think they would take with the queen, would they? They have two other pieces they could take with back there, the rook and the knight. Okay, I think that's my only check. Do I have any captures? I mean, aside from these two pieces, that can't be good. Or this pawn, or this pawn. Those are all bad captures, I'm certain. What about threats? I have this threat, which is, I guess, a fork of the bishop and the queen. What are they going to do? What do they do if I put my knight over here? Did they just move the queen over one? And then I take the bishop? I have no idea. And again, my brain's getting tired. I'm not going to spend any more time on this. I'm so surprised that was right. It's got to be taking the bishop, right? Because if I take the queen, they take back and then they're protecting the bishop. So I think it has to be taking the bishop with my queen and then taking the queen with my knight. Oh, 38. My goodness. Wait, why did that happen? Why is the hourglass popping up? Did you see that on my mouse pointer? A little hourglass popped up like something was running, but nothing's running except my recording software in this browser. Okay. Do I have any checks? No. Yes. I have two checks. Okay. Well, one gets a free pawn. If I take the pawn with check, they have the choice of going in the corner or coming out. If they came out, I could check again. I don't know what that accomplished, but my knight is in danger right now. I mean, it's in danger of a trade, I guess. Also, this pawn is hanging. Why did I leave that pawn hanging? So if I check, they come toward me, then I have to move the knight again. I move the knight again, and they could come toward me again if they wanted to. What if I check down here and they come up? Then my knight's temporarily out of danger, but then what do I gain? Oh, I take here? No, because then they take that. Oh, maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. I check here to remove the defender of this knight, and then when they come toward me, I check over here where the bishop will be defending it, and if they come toward me, then I take that knight. Again, that seems incredibly complicated. I'm not going to spend any more time on it. That was correct. So this is probably correct, but we'll find out in a second. Then they went back, so now I get this free knight, and then I guess they get my pawn whenever they're ready. Oh, wow. Okay. Anywhere I move my rook is check. Anywhere I move my rook is check. But they're going to take my queen. If I check by taking on c3, though, it's double check. So they can't take my queen or my rook. They have to move the king. So that's fantastic. Let's say the rook captures on c3, so it's double check. My queen would be cutting off this whole diagonal. My rook is hitting this file. They can't block with the knight because the queen is also checking the king. They can't take either piece because it's double check. I love double checks. It's a discovered attack and a double attack. They would have to move over one, but then my queen and my rook are both hanging. But then I could save my queen with another check, and they would have to move over again, and then I get their queen. Is that it? It was. Okay, then it's probably this. It doesn't matter whether they move over again or block. I'll get their queen for the rook. Oh, please be this. I guess it could also... No, the knight would get me back there. So it's probably e4. And then I get their queen. Oh, my 40. That's only one below my record. Oh, my goodness. I feel good about this, even though my brain's getting tired. But the record makes me want to keep pushing. I could take the free rook because they just moved out of the way of it. Or is there a checkmate? There might be a checkmate. I don't know. What about checking here with the rook? Nothing's guarding that square. G2. My queen's cutting off all of the back rank. My rook would be cutting off all of this, and my queen's protecting the rook. and my rook would be hitting this too, so they would have to move forward to f3. And then I would bring my king to h3, and that's checkmate? Oh, and it stopped, even though they only have one legal move. Maybe they had more than one legal move. I don't know. Okay, I've tied my all-time record. That's amazing. Can I break it? I have 2 rooks. Do I have checks? I do have a check. One is here. I assume they would come toward the pawn, and then I could take their rook, but then they would take mine, and then what? Okay, do I have any other checks? No, that's my only check. Do I have any captures? I think that's my only capture. Do I have any threats? Can't take their rook because of the pawn here. Okay, so let's say I check on h7, taking that pawn. That's a skewer to the rook, but they will probably go here to protect the rook, and then I'll check again with the rook that's left on the back rank on e1, and they have to leave defense of that rook, like coming here, and then I'll take that rook. Fingers crossed that this gives us 42. I think the answer is checking again. That forces them to leave the defense of their rook. Oh, they just took my pawn. That's embarrassing. I didn't consider that as a possibility. Well, then do I check again and then win their rook because the 2 rooks will both be pointed at it? That's got to be it. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. 42. Oh, I am getting so tired. Okay, their queen is here. Do I have checks? I would have a mate if my pesky knight wasn't in the way, because the bishop would be protecting my queen down there. But my knight is in the way, which is frustrating. And I can't use it to block this. Let's see. I could check, and they took. And then I would have a discovered check from my bishop. And when they got out of check, I'd win their queen, but then they would get my knight too, and that would help them more than it helped me. What if I protected my queen with the knight? Then when they took it, I could take back with check. And whether they moved over or up, when I got out of the way, they'd be in check from the bishop and have to move their king, and then I would get the knight for get the rook for the knight, and then they would take that, and then I would take their knight? Does that make sense? Probably not. I'm going to try it. Okay, wow. It's actually kind of a relief that I failed that, because I was kind of hoping that this would end before too long. Okay, I do have checks. I have check there and a check here. I think the one on f6, wait, I'm playing with the black pieces. The one on f6, I think they would take with the knight. I would take back, and then I don't have a rook anymore. If I check here on e, whatever that is, e4, they would just get out of check one way or the other. Probably not there because of the discovered check after I moved my rook. So let's say they would go back one, and then what? Also, they've got a passed pawn that's protected by their bishop and protecting their bishop. I have a check with my pawn. I almost didn't see that. g5 check. If they move over, then I could check them. And then they could hide behind there, but then that would be mate. Wait, what? They could just go back. Okay, maybe that's not it. Okay, what about this again? Let's do the pawn, just for fun. Probably incorrect, but we'll find out why in just a minute. Oh, that was right. What? Well, then I check with the rook. Think? No. I think I check with the bishop. Because if I check with the rook, they can come out that way. Should I check with the bishop? Because then the bishop will be cutting off all of this. The pawn's cutting that off, and the pawn's cutting this off. Oh, but then they could come this way. But if I check with the rook, what do I do when they move up there? Check with the pawn again? And then they move again, and then I check again? Surely I don't have a mate here. Okay, wow. Okay. I'm kind of glad I missed that one. I'm going to check these 3 real quick because this second video is nearing 45 minutes now. So let's do this quickly so I can be done. Okay, they played there. I don't remember what I did, but I'm going to click the hint button. I think I must have taken the e pawn, but I had to take this pawn. That was one of the things I considered. Okay, should I take it with my rook then? And they took there, and then I take here, and then take here. Okay, was that all forced? I don't know. Okay, so if I take here, do they have to take back? Now here they kind of do have to take back, but they're still up a piece, right? A piece for a pawn, the knight that I just gave away. But this, why didn't they go back to continue protecting the bishop? They just gave me the bishop for free. Yeah, that I don't understand. And there's no way, for me anyway, there's no way to guess that they're going to make the wrong move. So even if I had calculated that far, I would have expected them to go protect the bishop. So that didn't make sense to me. Okay. The next one that I missed was very recently, so I should have a better memory of it, which was here. And I don't remember what I played. I think I pulled the knight back. It was taking the queen to the corner because I can check, double check. They'd have to move over, and then that's not mate. This is double check, and they come over, and then that's mate. Oh my goodness. Yeah, you're never going to find that in a game. I think I honestly, did I mention that? These two checks? I might have when I was calculating, but this forces them to take the queen. This would have forced them to take the queen, but then they wouldn't be in the corner. If I had just gone to G7, they'd be up here. But now because they're in the corner, I have a double check setting up mate, because now they only have one legal move, and this cuts off everything. Okay, that's impressive. I wish I had found that. Very nice puzzle. I like it. And the last one that I missed, I think when I got the first move right, just by flipping a coin, basically, when I moved this pawn, that turned out to be right. But this did not turn out to be right. So it was the next pawn. What? And then another pawn? No, then they would just come again. No, but then that would be mate. Okay, so the next pawn, and then they would just go back though. Wait, what about checking with the bishop now? But then again, they can still just go back. Okay, so even if I had got this, the check with F5, I still would have, messed up here. But I can keep pushing them back because they won't come forward because that's mate. Oh, that wasn't it anyway. Okay, then was it this? Oh, it was. Oh, and then I get the knight? Oh my. So it wasn't about mating, it was about getting the knight. Check with the pawn, check with the other pawn, check with the bishop, and then get the knight. They're still going to push this pawn though, aren't they? Oh my goodness, this is going to be a long video. I apologize for that. Out of curiosity, at the end, are they not going to push the pawn? Why wouldn't they push the pawn? Oh, if they push the pawn, I take the bishop and I guard the getaway square. It says they can play b4 or a4 or their best moves, or b3. Well, let's say they played b4 then. What do? Oh, I just take the pawn now. I think I understand that, but I don't think I'm going to find that in a game. That was rated 2365. Oh yeah, my last two were rated over 2300. Thank you for being here. Thank you for spending your time here. Hopefully you got something out of that. I'm really happy that I set my new all-time record, and I'll see you next time.